it just sometimes ends up taking weeks and you spend thousands and thousands of dollars. And we just wanted to make something really simple.
That is Fredrik Thomassen, CEO and co-founder of Konsus.com. That's Konsus.com, which is an on-demand creative outsourcing service. Fredrik shared his ideas on the future of work. Hint, he says that it's remote work, as well as the way that he runs his own company using a hybrid structure where half his team is located in Oslo or San Francisco and the rest are remote. We chatted about the tools he uses to coordinate his company's activities, how remote work is going to change the employee evaluation process, the challenges of being able to work 24/7, and how his team's ambition is for every company in the world to eventually have a Konsus subscription. Fredrik's idea for starting his company came while he worked in Indonesia, setting up and building an e-commerce company. He was inspired by the limitless talent that the internet provides access to and decided that he wanted to be part of the transition into linking labor markets globally. Knowing how indispensable the tools he'd had access to while at McKinsey had been, it seemed like providing similar support to companies around the world made sense. Fredrik sees his job as CEO as making the best people available and letting companies take advantage of them in the easiest possible way. The story of his firm and where he sees business headed is fascinating, and I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. Fredrik says he's always open to chatting, and he values the many interesting conversations that have started with a simple email. You can reach him at his website, Konsus.com. It's Konsus.com, or email him directly at Fredrik@Konsus.com, and that's Fredrik@Konsus.com. And those links are in the show notes. If you visit umbrex.com/unleashed, you can sign up for the weekly Unleashed email, where you'll get transcripts of each episode, book recommendations, and consulting tips. Thanks for listening. Hello, Fredrik. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Fredrik, tell me a little bit about your thoughts around the future of work. We thought we'd just start with a small, narrow question like that.
Yeah, wow, that's easy start there. I think obviously the most kind of easy to predict trend is that remote work is the future of work. It's the most rapidly growing, very easily observable trend. I think you see it across all of Western Europe, the US, in kind of the similar numbers, kind of almost doubling every year. People are increasingly aware of the evidence out surrounding kind of the efficiency, productivity of remote work, and seeing that's for at least a lot of different types of jobs. There's really no loss, and the employee satisfaction is higher, and oftentimes you can get some kind of geographical arbitrage where people in less fortunate countries or states or whatever it might be get access to a higher wage in a different labor market. So that's sort of the most obvious one, and I think there's a few other transitions that are pretty exciting, which sort of follows this remote work trend. And I think one transition that's to us very exciting is that so when you have a remote team, you have to manage that team in a little bit of a different way. This traditional focus on FaceTime, hours in the office, and politics and so on, which become unobservable in a virtual remote context, becomes less important, and then actual work output becomes more important. And I think one of the most important transitions in a way in the 21st century is from this wet governance models where humans decide to a more kind of dry governance model where code decides promotions, compensations, allocation of work, all this kind of stuff. And so our company is, for example, built around this notion of letting code and software allocate work internally, reward people internally, promote people, and we haven't sort of embedded everything in code, but we've come quite far. And I think over time we'll increasingly see companies building promotion paths and salary structures with software instead of, this typical, HR committee or whatever of old gray, eminence gris type people, making decisions based on who they like and who they don't like.
Yeah. And now you're living what you're talking about with the remote work, because you have a company that has one office, I think, in San Francisco with sales and marketing, and you are sitting right now in Oslo today. Is that right?
I am. We have kind of a bit of a hybrid structure. We have a couple of small offices, and then we have half the team working remotely, which is, I think amazing. The people that want to move to Oslo or San Francisco and work with us there are happy to, we sort of help people do that. And but people that want to stay remotely for a variety of reasons, we allow that as well. So we don't have, a super clear stance. We definitely see that there are also benefits of being in an office once in a while. There's a certain creative energy and culture and so on. So there are obviously downsides as well. But, when you take all things into consideration, especially sort of cost levels in San Francisco Bay Area, it quite quickly becomes at least a tool that most companies should use to, if it's 10%, 20%, 50%, or 100% of your employees, I think, most companies will increasingly rely on a remote workforce with all of the implications that has for, monitoring and guiding and training and community and culture and all those things. And, having to rethink all of those and building kind of an online virtual community is really challenging and exciting.
And tell me a little bit about the where some of the folks on your remote employees work, and what sort of tools do you use internally to just coordinate your activities of your firm? You're using like some kind of video conference tool like Zoom, or using Slack, or what sort of project management tools do you use to make sure everybody's on the same page when they're all in remote locations?
We obviously use Slack like everyone else. Seems like there's no circumventing Slack and email. Obviously, we use a relatively traditional setup on sort of video conferencing and so on, and then we use, for most of our internal processes, we use Jira for the project management, and have try to embrace a fully agile Scrum type structure where we assign points to tasks to evaluate their difficulty and measure people on how many points they achieve in every sprint. And it's relatively data driven, and it's important for us to build internal tools to track performance in terms of how people deliver on key KPIs in a very numerical way, and how people deliver on points, especially on the software side. It's sometimes hard to link engineering output directly to KPIs, and then you have to also look at story points and things like that. But it definitely is challenging. But I think the absence of having this element of office FaceTime definitely makes it kind of more fair. And so that's pretty important for us, and I think very motivating, especially to the people that are remote and don't have the advantage of sitting close to management and talking nice to management and getting liked by management in order to get a promotion. So it's a very much of a cultural thing. I think most importantly the cultural thing. To the other question of where our team is based, we have 110 people now spread across 40 different countries. So really scattered, and there's always something going on 24/7. We have people in 17 time zones. So there's a very kind of a continuous motion kind of thing, which is a blessing and a curse at the same time. At least for me, it means that I can work. I can at any point in time just pick up my computer and start working. So if I'm at the airport waiting, obviously, it's good usage of time to sit down and work. But it is also kind of you can never really let down. There's always something going on, and hard to go on vacation for 2 weeks and be completely disconnected. I don't think it's possible at all, and so that's also, I guess, some of the downsides of creating this kind of remote, virtual, continuous motion within your company.
That is amazing. 110 employees and they're in 40 countries. That is incredible. It must have been quite a adventure to just even sort out the HR of how do you pay people in 40 different countries.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's luckily a lot of things on the payment side has gotten a lot better over the last 5-10 years, and I think that has actually been one of the most important enablers of running these virtual teams, and also obviously on kind of client sides, or our customers are increasingly confident in working with us when we say that we're a completely virtual company. And I guess 10 years ago you would have had a lot of raised eyebrows about how you monitor confidentiality, how do you monitor performance, and all those things. And to us now it's a completely different mindset where we're able to say, okay, we monitor confidentiality and file security because we embed it completely into software without sort of relying on this traditional in-office monitoring mechanisms, and people are much more comfortable. It's much easier to create trust around a virtual company today than it was 10 years ago. So I expect to see a lot of companies over the next 10 years going completely remote.
I guess one thing is it's a game changer just in terms of hiring. I mean, if you're a company that's based in Seattle or San Francisco, then the pool of potential people that you might interview for a given job, it's kind of, it's somewhat finite, right? It feels finite. But how in the world do you think about hiring employees when they could be, in Indonesia or Dubai or India or Argentina? Like, how do you post jobs and screen employees? Screen applicants.
I mean, it's a great question, and I spend most of my time doing recruiting, and I don't have any silver bullets. Obviously, it makes things easier when you can recruit globally. You can go to people that works currently in San Francisco or Seattle or New York, working for some of the big tech companies there, and you can give a pitch which is around okay, would you like to work remotely for a couple of years, just try that lifestyle. We might not be able to pay you the same amount of money that you made in the Bay Area, but at least you're free to move around. And to some people that's tremendously exciting. So it definitely opens up some opportunities, and it also opens up opportunities for us to sort of hire people, especially on the engineering side, out of countries that are much less expensive than California or Norway for that matter, and provide them with a salary that is much higher than their current domestic wage rate, but still lower than the wage that we would have had to pay in Norway or California. So we're sort of splitting that wage differential. Typically we end up splitting it sort of 50-50, something like that. But yeah, definitely exciting, but definitely still the same challenges. And I guess recruiting will always be, at least for the recruiting, the best people will always be based on referrals from your existing employees and from people that you know and from your investors and so on.
Yeah, and my observation is that recruiting sites, job boards have really not kept pace, where almost always they insist that you put in an actual location for a job. And that, all these monster.com, indeed.com, they should all have an option where this is a completely remote job. You can work from anywhere within a given country, or maybe you can work anywhere in the world. So anyway, if anybody's...
I think that's a really interesting observation, and it's going to be super interesting to see kind of how the landscape of job boards will develop over the next few years. I think, traditionally job boards have been domestic, super domestic. There's going to be a Swedish job board, a Norwegian general job board, and then there's going to be kind of this niche focused job boards for, if it's oil and gas, or if it's aluminum or doctors, or these like niche job boards. And then some attempts have been made to create these global job boards, but I'm not sure beyond the aggregators like Indeed and so on, how successful the global job boards have been. There are a couple of remote job boards that are working reasonably well. We work remotely, flex jobs working reasonably well. But I think the main challenge for me with job boards is that there's no value adding processes and software or whatever it's just completely flat structures where people post jobs, and then other people can come in and apply to those jobs through some kind of third party applicant tracking system. There's and I would love to see more innovations, such as, for example, what hire.com is doing, where you have some mechanisms to clear the market in a much more efficient way. But it's going to be super exciting to see how that develops over the next few years.
Yeah, let's talk about your product. So you were at McKinsey for a bit, and now you have a pretty big global company, over 100 employees. Tell us about what your company does.
So we're kind of a venture-backed design agency that's run in a very much startup tech way. So we provide the design services, creative services for large corporations, consultancies, investment banks, independent consultants, really, and anyone and everyone, but typically sort of business professionals. Way it works is that we have 3 ways of working with us. You can work with a kind of pay-as-you-go plan, but most of our clients are working on a subscription plan where you buy kind of $1,000 or a $3,000 a month plan, and you get access to our entire talent pool, essentially, of graphic designers, web designers, PowerPoint designers, content writing, research, and so really, for those of your listeners that have worked at, McKinsey or BCG or Bain, or one of the large investment banks, you're probably used to having some kind of solution like this internally, where you could send stuff to either an outsourced or an in-house team that would help overnight to flip things around. And we're doing essentially exactly that, but for all, or for everyone that doesn't have this kind of setup themselves. And we do it in quite a lot more high-end, or we at least cover kind of all of the ranges from premium design down to sort of production level presentation design. So the whole range is covered. And yeah, most of our clients are based in the US. We have quite a good presence in Western Europe as well, but most of our clients are American business professionals.
All right, cool. So I think, I'm certainly pretty familiar with using, when I was at McKinsey, using the India-based visual graphics, where you would kind of either hand draw some charts, or you would mark up some existing charts with some edits and send it there overnight. I'm familiar with that. I think a lot of the listeners are familiar with that kind of service. Tell me about some of the other services you offer, like, let's say, graphic design.
Right.
Give me some use cases for that. Like, what kind of graphic design would you be doing, and how does that process work?
Yeah, no, great question. And it's similar in its simplicity to the way we do presentation design. You just go to the website, choose what you want, if it's an infographic or a brochure or a banner ad. And then there's specific way that we have this specific tech for how to do the brief. You just fill in the brief, super easy, straightforward, send it to us. In 30 minutes, our team starts. The project is assigned automatically to one of our team members that sits available, and they start working and sends it back within 12 hours, 24 hours, or a couple more days if that's needed, or if the client wants to have more iterations and so on. So it's really just a hyper fast, super reliable design agency at a quarter of the cost of a traditional design agency. And we observed kind of working with design agencies. We go through kind of this similar process where you go to a design agency website, you enter your email or in some kind of contact us form. A couple of days later, a sales rep will call you and book you into some kind of session with a couple of creative people, and you do kind of a brainstorm and figure out some concepts. And the whole period, it just sometimes ends up taking weeks, and you spend thousands and thousands of dollars. And we just wanted to make something really simple, because a lot of design needs to go fast, needs to be reliable for a specific deadline, needs to be at a little bit of a different cost level than what a typical design agency delivers. And so that's what we've enabled. And most of our clients use this just in this recurring way where they every month they will send a bunch of different stuff. The marketing team will send us all their banner ads and infographics and all the stuff that they use for content marketing. We have clients that use us mostly for branding stuff. Some clients use us for peak loading. Some creative agencies use us to when they have a lot of stuff to do, they just send us all of the other design tasks that they need to do.
So can you give me some examples of how maybe a consultant would be using your service? What would an example of a brief be from a consultant?
So I think most consultants, are still relatively stuck with Microsoft PowerPoint as their main tool, and so that's the most common way of using us, getting help with presentation design, doing either quick brush ups overnight, a bit more professional formatting, or sometimes high-end designs if you're in an important proposal process, or a big conference or whatever. People will order a high-end design, and there's you can either upload your own template if you have that for your company, or we can make a new template for your companies, and or you can choose from one of our predefined templates, and then we just make the design along those lines. And some people have very detailed specifications for exactly how they want it on each and every slide, using the old consulting trick of placing a yellow box or something on every slide, very clearly laying out how you want to do it. So that's sort of the most common use case. We also have a bunch of consultants that increasingly see that you need to sometimes deliver even more compelling graphical expressions. And if you want to do that, then there are some limitations in PowerPoint, and you will need to use one of those Adobe programs that most consultants haven't yet figured out, but that I'm pretty sure will become an increasingly important part of most consultants' day-to-day, where you can create things that are a bit more amazing. And I think there are a lot of situations where there's the return on investment for spending a few $100s on a short Konsus project to make something look absolutely amazing. So increasingly we see people using our graphic design service, and also we see consultants using our web design service, where you make mock-ups for clients, and these people doing digital projects or making landing pages for specific projects. Or sometimes we have consultants using our web design service to make entire proposals in a website. That's become pretty popular, especially BCG has started to do that a lot. And so yeah, those would be the three most common. We sometimes proofread stuff, and sometimes we make entire reports and do some market research or lead collection and this kind of stuff as well.
That's fascinating. Can you do things like create a white paper or even create an ebook out of, if somebody has content that they've written, create an ebook for them?
Absolutely, and that's a very common use case where somebody has either a long Word document where they've written down a ton of stuff, it has no design, and they just want to make it into a downloadable ebook and hide that behind or put that behind some kind of gated email capture form or whatever it might be. So definitely a very common way of supporting content marketing teams or marketing teams more generally, and increasingly, we see independent consultants becoming relatively sophisticated in how they do their own marketing by producing, quite regularly pieces of content, repurposing existing or former projects or existing projects that have done into evergreen content, putting that on a website, and just a bit of proofreading, additional content here and there, some SEO optimization, some design, and placing it on the website really makes 10x on the number of downloads and email captures that you can get from some relatively basic content, and so that's getting definitely increasingly popular as well.
That's amazing. Sounds like a really cool thing. And is all the work being done by your 110 employees, or do you also have subcontractors that are doing some of the actual design and some of the PowerPoint work?
We do all in-house for sure.
You do? Okay. You mentioned security. How do you manage security with a remote team, maybe working on some, super secret due diligence project for some investment bank? How do you manage the security across the globe?
I mean, so the way we look at it is, when Uber came and sort of took over for taxis in many places, it became a lot safer to ride taxis because you would always at any given point in time know who you were driving with, and there would be no question about it because the app always keeps track of it. And in the same fashion, we track every single touch point that files have, who opens the files, when, where, how it's being used, and so on. And so that's tremendously powerful. Obviously, everything is encrypted, and we don't send files through. We don't really send files through. We just create a link to our clients that they can go to our website, log in, download their files from there. So that makes things a lot safer. And then I think most important, or most leaks, or 98%, or almost all leaks are from disgruntled employees that are pretty close to the clients themselves. And so for us, our team members just don't have an incentive. If you're in Argentina working on a due diligence document for an oil and gas company in Norway, you just don't know any of the names of the drilling rigs, so you don't have any context, and so it's very hard for you to get any kind of leverage off of that information. So that's the second important point. And thirdly, it's to us all about culture and training, and we're probably more obsessive than even McKinsey about confidentiality, where as part of the onboarding, as part of all the training in the first 6 months for our team members, we talk about confidentiality again and again and again, and we have super strict NDAs, and we just have a constant focus on confidentiality. And now we've done tens of thousands of projects and still haven't had a single leak. So I think we're so far so good, and we're doing everything we can. We obviously understand that people's information security is highly important, and it's definitely something that we try to build a competitive advantage around compared with other online work marketplaces such as Upwork or Fiverr or 99 Designs for those of our clients who might be for those of your listeners that might be familiar with those platforms.
Tell us the origin story of your company. How did you come up with the idea? What was the genesis?
So I worked at an e-commerce company in Indonesia as part of setting up and building an e-commerce company in Indonesia, which was super exciting. And down there, I sort of observed Two things, and one is that you just have amazing people all over the world making much less than what they truly deserve. And the internet is a really profound way of linking labor markets globally. And to me, it's just so obvious that over the next 20 years, so much of what we do will be moved online to various online platforms. And I wanted to be a part of that transition, and it's just exploding right now, and it's super exciting to be part of. So that was sort of the kind of high level thing, and then more tactically around which idea to start with online. It seemed obvious to me that as a user of McKinsey's internal tools, that all other companies in the world should have this kind of similar support solution. It's super amazing when it works in McKinsey, but there's a huge fixed cost of setting it up. McKinsey has 1,000 people for PowerPoint alone for 12,000 consultants, and getting a system like that set up is really costly and really challenging, and most clients just don't want to bother with that. And as such, really nobody beyond the top 20 or 100 largest companies, or with the most highly recurring needs, have those setups. And so we've built a super easy to get started solution, and then sort of starting from presentation design, just kept adding on more and more services, to sort of now finally having one full suite creative department as a service type offering, where our clients can subscribe for $1,000 a month, and get a full creative department to do all their needs. So I mean, our vision, in the same way that sort of Microsoft in the 1980s would say, our vision is to have a PC on every desktop. Our ambition is to have kind of every company to have a Konsus subscription. Every company should have a Konsus team in their office. And so far so good. We have a few hundred clients that use us recurringly, and there are obviously thousands and thousands more. So we just need to go out and find them.
Is it typically you're selling to kind of an individual within a company who gets a personal individual subscription, or is it more of an enterprise sale where you'll go to a company and then they'll have like some kind of enterprise offering?
So we only do, so we believe in keeping costs extremely low, keeping overhead extremely low, just doing kind of a software-enabled platform where we allow companies to get the best people. And we obviously, we get 5,000 applications every month, and we hire maybe 10 of those. So our job is just to make the best people available, and let people take advantage of that in the easiest possible way. And so we mainly do inbound marketing through search engine optimization, content marketing, branding, this type of stuff. And then people come to us, and we work with our sort of incoming clients in a very reactive way. If they need help, we help them. If they want to have a larger setup, we help them with that. And so our sales is essentially just customer success management, helping people get stuff done more easily. And we have really anything. We have people that find us from huge $100 billion plus companies, find us, add their colleagues, they tell another team, that team tells another team, and suddenly you have 6 and 7 teams in a huge company just working with us independently without having to go through procurement or doing some large enterprise sales deal and so on. And we definitely want to continue to keep an ultra lean structure, and sort of not pass this additional cost layer onto our clients.
On a personal level, Fredrik, I'm curious if you have any kind of daily routines or weekly routines that maybe you've had them for a long time, or maybe you recently adopted them, that you found really make you more effective?
I'm one of those guys that gets super excited about a new habit for, like 3 weeks. And so I would get this impulse that, I'm going to become like Tim Cook and wake up like 4:30 in the morning every day and go work out and answer emails and all this stuff. And then it just lasts for 3 weeks. And so I've started to take kind of a more incremental approach where I do, I do small changes and decide whether they're good or bad. I think I lead a relatively normal life, and I do think that the life that most people live on any given day, just waking up at a normal time, having a normal breakfast, going to work at a normal time, like 9 o'clock or whatever, and then just trying to do your job and working until, when you need to, and not too long and not too early, just like a normal go home like 7 or whatever. So I mean that's I think common sense is hugely underrated in this world of habits. I don't do any kind of performance enhancement drugs or any of those 20 things. I think a good cup of coffee in the morning is good. If I drink too many, it's not good. I try to run and exercise, an appropriate amount, but really, I just go to work every day and look forward to it. And if it becomes too habitual, too routine based, that probably wouldn't excite me that much.
All right. For listeners who are interested to learn more about your company, maybe even explore subscribing to the service, what is the best place for them to go?
They can go to konsus.com, so that's konsus.com, and just take it from there. It's really, really simple. We have every day or every month at least hundreds of new companies signing up. If you can't figure it out, or if you would like to have kind of a custom setup or a large setup or whatever, I encourage anyone and everyone to just send me an email at Fredrik, Fredrik @konsus.com, and just have a conversation with me. Way too few people just email CEOs and say, hey, I would love to chat. And, I always answer all those emails and have a ton of really random, interesting conversations with people all over the world. And it always gives me a lot of enthusiasm and leads to a lot of great things. So please do reach out.
Fredrik, that is awesome. Thanks so much for joining us. It was a great discussion, and thanks for sharing the story of your firm.
Thanks a lot for being here and for listening to me chatting for the good part of 30 minutes.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Unleashed, the show that explores how to thrive as an independent professional. Unleashed is sponsored by Umbrex, the world's first global community of top-tier independent management consultants. The mission of Umbrex is to create opportunities for independent management consultants to meet, share lessons learned, and collaborate. I'd love to get your feedback and hear any questions that you'd like to see us answer on this show. You can email me at unleashed@umbrex.com. That's UMBREX.com. If you found anything on the show helpful, it would be a real gift if you would let a friend know about the show, and take a minute to leave a review on iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher. And if you subscribe, our show will get delivered to your device every Monday. Our audio engineer is Dave Nelson. Our theme song was composed by Gary Negbauer, and I'm your host, Will Bachman. Thanks for listening.